The Toyota Sienna is one of those cars you see everywhere on the streets. As you can see, the car is already climbing this super steep trail surprisingly easily. And now you're probably wondering, what even is this thing? Well, this is the Toyota Sienna. Yep, a minivan. And honestly, I still have no idea how this thing managed to climb such a brutal hill, especially considering it's not even a hardcore off-roader. So tell me in the comments, how do you think this happened? But today we're not stopping there. We're taking this family machine and putting it through all of our crazy tests, especially a brand new crash test that you'll see later in the video. So let's get started. First up, suspension testing. This is where the Sienna really needs to prove itself. And wow, the suspension is incredibly soft. Honestly, the only car I can compare it to is the Lincoln Navigator. And if you haven't seen that review yet, you definitely should after this video. Now let's move on to the real test surfaces. First up, the cobblestone road. As expected, the car handled it beautifully. Then we moved on to the rough bump section. And honestly, this thing was incredible. I never expected a minivan to have suspension this comfortable. Next up, city speed bumps. And just like I expected, the Sienna had absolutely no problem here either. The ride quality is genuinely impressive. I'd even compare it to the legendary tank-style old Mercedes-Benz sedans I tested before. So in terms of suspension, this car absolutely nailed it. And as you already saw at the beginning of the video, it's surprisingly capable too. But what about handling? Well, unfortunately, that's where things start to fall apart a little. Let me be honest right away. Not really. This is still a heavy vehicle with extremely soft suspension, so you can't expect sharp handling from it. During our Moose test, the Sienna struggled to complete the course properly even at 55 kilometers per hour. But honestly, that still doesn't take away from what this car is trying to be. Now it's time for the acceleration and braking tests. A section where nobody really expects much from a family minivan. But somehow, this car shocked all of us. It managed to go from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 7 seconds. Yep, 7 seconds. That is genuinely impressive for a vehicle like this. But then we tested the brakes. And honestly, they were terrible. Like really terrible. This was one of the worst braking performances I've ever seen. The car needed around 47 meters to stop from 100 kilometers per hour to 0. For a modern vehicle, that's extremely bad, and it seriously hurts the car's safety score. Speaking of safety, let's move on to the crash tests. As always, we're starting with the pillar strength test and rollover test. For the pillar strength test, we put the car under the crusher and slowly increase the pressure. This test basically shows the maximum force the structure can handle. The result? Around 37,000 newtons. Honestly, that's pretty average, and it doesn't exactly inspire confidence for the upcoming crash tests. Next up, the rollover test. And surprisingly, the Sienna actually performed pretty well here. I can't really criticize it much because the impacts were extremely violent. Although, I still have no idea what happened to the dummy's legs. Recently, these crash test dummies have been doing some very weird things. Anyway, now it's time for the real crash tests. First up, the classic 50% frontal crash. Visually, the damage looked pretty bad from the outside, but once we checked the cabin view, it almost looked like nothing major had happened. Even the dashboard stayed mostly intact. That's honestly pretty strange. So now I want you guys to tell me in the comments, do you think the car protected the passengers properly or not? Next up, the full 100% frontal crash. This one is much easier for the vehicle because the force is distributed more evenly across the chassis, meaning less stress on critical structural points. And because of that, the Sienna performed noticeably better here. Then we moved on to the next exciting test, the 100% head-on collision. And once again, the car delivered a surprisingly solid performance. It's honestly weird, because in the first frontal test, the car didn't look very confidence-inspiring, yet here it suddenly performs much better. Why do you think that happened? Tell me in the comments. Now it's time for the rear crash test. And honestly, this car has a lot to say here. It almost looks like nothing happened. Basically, only the rear bumper and trunk area got damaged, which is honestly very impressive. Then we moved on to the side impact test, and this is where you need to decide. Do you think the Sienna protected its passengers properly or not? To make it easier for you, I even added interior camera footage so you can judge the cabin movement for yourselves. But now, it's time for our brand new test. We brought in our Mercedes Actros truck and prepared something absolutely brutal. The plan? Crash the truck into the back of the Sienna. But not just like that. There's also a roughly 12-ton trailer sitting in front of the car, creating a semi-realistic highway scenario. A truck suddenly stops ahead, and another truck slams into the back of you. This test can get very ugly. For the first run, I tested it at around 33 kilometers per hour. And honestly, the Sienna performed shockingly well. I was genuinely surprised. Then we increased the speed for the second run. This time, the truck hit the Sienna at 45 kilometers per hour. And once again, I was shocked. Even though the vehicle suffered massive damage, it still managed to protect the passengers surprisingly well. Honestly, considering how brutal this new test is, and the fact that I've never really seen anything quite like it before, I think this car deserves an easy 4-star safety rating. But what do you think? And also tell me this, should I replace the old rear and side trailer crash tests with this new test format from now on? Definitely let me know in the comments. Now it's time for the final test. We repeated the same truck and trailer setup, but this time the Sienna hit the trailer with a 50% overlap. In theory, this test should have been much harder than the previous one, but somehow, the car actually performed even better. And remember, our Actros truck was still hitting the Sienna at 45 kilometers per hour. So now I want you to tell me this. Why do you think the car performed better in the harder test? Write your theories down below. And until the next video, goodbye.